Hey, I know while all of you guys are hopping in, and I would love to know where you're from, but I want to just explain something real quick before we get started. We're going to talk all about insulin resistance today, how it's linked to so many things, like on one end, cancer, on the other end, PCOS. Like, how is one thing linked to all of these wildly varying issues that I love to talk about? So let's see if we can fix this a little bit. So all of the stuff up above that I suffered with, many of you do too, is actually linked to insulin resistance. And we're going to go over all of that today, why and how it's affecting your cells and where it's all starting, all of the stuff. Because look, most of us have been going into doctors' offices and not getting the answers for why we're sick, not getting the answers for why we can't get better, not getting answers except for if you would lose weight, if you would just do better, and you're being told that it's all your fault, and it's not. So I want to hop in this morning. We're going to talk about all of those things and hopefully dispel some myths, give you some hope, and show you what's really going on inside most of our bodies. Now, for me, this was me when I started. I had a walker and a cane. I had disability plates. I was miserable. I thought that I was going to be gone by the time I was 70 because my blood pressure was so high, it was out of control. Thought my heart was going to give out. A number of things. I couldn't work out anymore. Now I can work out again. And I dropped 50 pounds during all of that. But the weight was not the big thing. The weight was not the big thing. The weight was not the big thing. The big thing was understanding that my health was back, that my teeth and gums weren't bleeding anymore, that my eyesight wasn't failing anymore, that I wasn't looking at being blind by now, that I had leg cramps and muscle cramps that were going away, that I had neuropathy that went away, that I had um, bones and joints that were failing that suddenly got better. All of this stuff got better. And that's what set me on this path. And why I'm here talking about it is because most of you guys don't understand all of this is linked, just like I didn't. And so we're going to share all of that. Insulin resistance is so much brain fog. How do you? Okay, so let's talk about that. And today I'm just going to we're just kind of riff on some things, right? So in all honesty, you guys, I had a good weekend. I woke up this morning and normally I spend a lot of time preparing, and I'm like, I want to have a chill Monday, so we're just going to talk about stuff, whatever's important to you guys. So brain fog. It goes a little something like this. When we have this insulin resistance built up in our bodies, where our bodies just are not taking up enough energy, we start to have problems. Some of the biggest metabolic users in our body are the kidney first, and then the heart, and then the brains. Now, I usually talk about muscles. Per volume, these three are the biggest. Per just overall taking up insulin, your skeletal muscles are the biggest. But what becomes insensitive to insulin the most, they're the most metabolically sensitive tissues are kidneys, heart, and brain. Your brain needs glucose to run on. Insulin is carrying the glucose to your cells for energy. But now we've inundated our cells with too much energy. So some of the cells are saying, I can't do this anymore. You're overwhelming me. And they start to shut down and not get that energy into them. This happens in the brain cells. So your brain needs cholesterol and it needs glucose to function. In the absence of having enough glucose, things start to fire incorrectly. You start to get vertigo and Meniere's disease. You start to have eyesight problems. You start to have vascular problems, but you also have this sensation of constantly being hungry while you can't think, because what's happening is your brain is devoid of energy, and that's cueing your body to want to eat more, to get that precious energy to the brain, but it just can't because the thing that's carrying the energy is being resisted in the brain. So how do we fix all of that? Well, stop eating so much all the time. We don't need to eat every 2 hours. And the people out there who are telling you to eat every 2 hours are damaging your health. And that's just, look, I'm just going to say it plain. Like there's not a study that says that eating every 2 hours helps your metabolism. From their weight loss standpoint, in the short term, yes, that can work. But really what we need to stop doing is just stop eating so much so often. We just don't need as much to be taken in as we're taking in. We've taken our food from something that's life sustaining to something that's just pleasurable. And I don't want to get on a big soapbox because I fall into that too. Like I love all the same stuff everybody else does, right? I have my moments. I was just talking with someone who says I'm a stress eater. I'm a stress eater too. Most of us are, but there's some ways to get around that. But in the brain, we have to start normalizing our insulin levels so our brain can be sensitive to that energy that's being carried again. When that happens, neurons start firing better. We start having less of the numbness and tingling. We have less of the brain fog. We have less of the interruptions in our memory. We have less of the anxiety and the serotonin and dopamine uptake problems. We have less of all of that by getting the insulin under control. So, we're going to talk about how we do that a little bit today. And I'm going to talk about why our system changed. I'm not going to talk about it in depth as much until we have a training on Wednesday that goes over all the science behind why we're making a slight change in the system that I use. But so we've got to stop eating so much. That means a little bit of intermittent fasting. One of the things that I talk about the most, you guys, look, intermittent fasting is not about calorie restriction. I'm going to say that every day until everybody gets it. This is not about calorie restriction. It doesn't take a lot of looking to go out there and find a number of people who've just cleaned up all the boxed in junk food, which I need to clean up too. Let's be honest. Like I said, I'm human. I'm right there in the struggle with everybody else. But just by cleaning up the food, by doing some intermittent fasting, they're able to maintain a healthy body weight. But it didn't mean extreme calorie restriction. Well, how does that work then? If everything that we've been told is about calorie restriction, how are people losing weight by just narrowing down their eating window and probably most of them eating even more calories than they were in a bigger window? It all has to do with the hormones that your body puts out and how it puts them out. So when we're eating, insulin is out to deliver that energy. When we're not eating, and it takes about 6 to 8 hours, depending on how insulin resistant you are or insulin responsive you are, for that insulin level to come back down and be not impeding everything else. So about 8 hours after you eat, before insulin levels come down. There's a component hormone that I'm just learning more about. And so as I shift my perspective on this hormone, I'll be sharing that with you guys because I always want to be honest. If I got something wrong, I'm going to admit that. I don't know that I got it wrong. I think I just didn't fully understand glucagon. So when insulin comes down, now glucagon can come out. One of the things that happens, or a number of the things that happen when glucagon comes out, is you start being able to burn fat for fuel. The conundrum is that in a highly insulin resistant person who's used to living off of sugar for energy, the glucagon can get dysregulated too. And now you have this high level of glucagon, and your blood sugars are pulling up so high because glucagon is pulling it out of your fat cells that you're still technically diabetic and having insulin resistance problems. So the best way to get both of those hormones acting like they're supposed to is to do some intermittent fasting. So insulin loves sugar and stores things. Insulin wants to store things up. Glucagon wants to burn things up. So insulin bringing sugar down, storing things, utilizing sugar for energy, but bringing the sugar out of the bloodstream. Glucagon, now when there's no food coming in, glucagon is putting sugar back into the bloodstream, raising the sugar level up for energy for you to live off of. In a normal body, those levels are pretty low for insulin and glucagon, and only as much as we need when we eat or when we're in that little bit of fasted state. But when we're insulin dysregulated, we're often glucagon dysregulated as well. This is the new piece that I didn't know before. I didn't know that most insulin resistant people are also glucagon dysregulated, meaning that we're trying to pull too much sugar into our system all the time. Again, the easiest bestest way to start to address that is some intermittent fasting and allow those hormones to find their groove, if you will, where they're supposed to be and not where we've artificially made them be. Does that make sense to everybody? Is everybody understanding what I'm saying, what I'm putting down? And keto diet, never look back. So you have most of these, and most of us do. But here's the thing, did you ever think that all of these things had one root cause, had one thing that was linked to all of them? And that if you took care of the one thing, that most of that would get better for you? Because I sure didn't. I heard, I think it was no, I know it was Dr. Bickman talking about all of these disorders and diseases are like weeds in a garden, right? And so what's happening is the medical community's going, oh, here's a weed, let's pick that weed, let's see what's going on here, let's try and address this weed, but there's all these other weeds growing around it. Instead of looking at the soil that all the weeds are growing in, so why are the weeds so prevalent in this patch of soil and they're not prevalent in that patch of soil? What medicine is doing right now is they're looking at each individual weed instead of the patch of soil. What we want to do is look at that bigger patch. I call it the elephant in the room, insulin resistance. When we can get insulin resistance under control, a number of these things start to get better, and we just no longer have all of these devastating disorders to deal with. And hey, guess what? If you get your insulin resistance under control and you still have some of those underlying things, now the doctor can clearly see what, or have a better chance of seeing what's really going on, because a lot of the other chatter is cleared out and they're like, oh, this is here. This is the root of this problem and we can address that. Getting the insulin resistance piece out of the way is only helping with not only your entire health, but a doctor being able to see and help you with more acute or chronic problems that you're not getting addressed. The inflammation in your body was gone. So here's the thing. Does stevia break a fast? No. Depends on how much, like if you're taking a whole bottle of stevia, yeah. But no, a small amount of stevia will not break your fast. So the keto diet, interestingly, I don't have anything against the keto diet. I did keto for almost 10 years as a competitive athlete. It didn't reverse my insulin resistance. Did it keep me from being full tilt diabetic? Absolutely. I think that it wasn't just the keto and the intermittent fasting, it was the 3 hours in the gym every day that kept me from being full blown diabetic. Now I'm 60, I don't compete anymore. Do I have time or want to spend 3 hours in the gym every day? No, I don't. So I'm working through that. But keto, intermittent fasting, absolutely works, but not everybody can do strict keto. Not everybody just wants to do that. For the people who can, I advocate for that all day long, right? If that's what your body's doing well with, do that. But for the rest of us who just need something sustainable, I want you to understand it doesn't have to be as difficult as it's all made out to be. You can have some carbohydrate. You can have a real life. You're just going to narrow down your eating window to only eat in an 8-hour window. Why in the heck were we ever thinking it was okay to eat for 12 and 16 hours a day? We don't need that much fuel. You combined keto, intermittent fasting, and the gym, went from 151 to 126. Amazing. Amazing stuff, Pink. And I agree with all of those things. But there are a couple of other things that we're missing in all of this, and that's fiber, protein, and fats. So keto does a good job of addressing some of that. But I think that for me, fiber, and then this tea, I'm going to talk about the tea tomorrow more in depth, because there's like 13 huge benefits from the tea for our health. And that's part of the reason why we've switched from a tea a day and two pre-meal drinks to 2 tea a day and 1 pre-meal drink. I'm going to try and explain some of that. One of the great things with the tea for me, and I'm not really here to talk about the tea today, but just intermittent fasting altogether and insulin resistance, is this helps with dopamine production. Any of you who are neurodivergent and struggle with dopamine production. And you get hooked into things and you get hyper focused and hyper fixated because it's giving you that dopamine. This helps with dopamine production. And so there's no need for all of that crazy hyper fixation. I still do it a little, but not as bad. Real quick story. My son sent me a picture of a 2 and a 7, and he goes, "What do these two numbers have in common?" And I'm like, "One's odd, one's even, blah, blah, blah." But initially, my first look at the picture was, well, they have the same shape except for the 2 has a tail. In my head, I'm like, nah, that's not the answer he's looking for. What's the logical answer? So I start working through and I give him the answer, and he goes, well, Ma, you're more neurotypical than you think because that's what neurotypical people say. And I'm like, well, let's break this down. Because my initial thought was blah, 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 blah. But I know you're not looking for that answer. So here's the answer. And he was like, okay, fair enough. Neurodivergent. I'm like, all day long. But look, this helps me with dopamine production as well. That's part of the cool thing with the tea. When you have levels of dopamine that are working, you're less likely to have that anxious overeating that you have going on. Okay. So after having your daughter, you got melasma. That was 7 years ago and you still have it. Let's talk about that. On loading dose. On the loading dose, there is no loading dose for this. You're having a tea in the morning and you're having a pre-meal drink before you eat. I don't understand what the loading dose is. And we're not here to talk about medications, those injections, because I find them highly damaging. The science has shown that there is enough risk with those that it's not something I would ever recommend to anyone I love. If you're talking about that, this is the wrong page. Okay, so melasma. Every woman, when she gets pregnant, becomes a little bit insulin resistant, whether you were before or not. During pregnancy, you become a little bit insulin resistant. And why is that? Well, because the the process is that it's starving you of a little bit of energy so that it can give that energy to a growing baby. So mom is now a little bit insulin resistant. Now, if you have a diet that's not as good as it should be, and you're getting in many of these excess carbohydrates and having even worse cravings because now you have insulin resistance and pregnancy, that insulin resistance can get really bad. And it probably just tipped you over the edge. Here's another thing I haven't talked about for a while. um, but with insulin resistance, breastfeeding, because every woman becomes a little insulin resistant during their pregnancy. That's why some women puff up. Like I watched a woman who was like super thin. I never really knew her before her pregnancy. Saw her afterwards, and I just hated that woman when I was younger. Not hated, jealous. But she went from like puffy, bloated, just like full on. Now I recognize she was fully insulin resistant during her pregnancy. As soon as she had the baby, within a few weeks, she dropped back down to this tiny, teeny little woman. Well, breastfeeding. You have 6 times more insulin tissue receptors in your breast tissues than anywhere else. But the hormones that get produced as a mother is breastfeeding helps her start to reverse that insulin resistance from pregnancy and become more insulin sensitive. The women who are skipping the breastfeeding part, there have been some scientific studies that show that when they skip that breastfeeding part, those women are more likely to stay insulin resistant or become even more insulin resistant after pregnancy than the ones who breastfeed. So, melasma. What's happening is with insulin resistance and your skin, you have an overproduction or an overconsumption of insulin by some cells. It's called insulin resistance because by and large, the body is resistant to the cues from insulin. But along with the syndrome that may be named incorrectly currently, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this change as time goes by. But some cells are taking up too much insulin. Your melanin is one of those cells, but it's sporadic. So you may end up with dark skin patches on your elbows, your knees, around your neck. I had melasma on the side of my face that was so bad, the patches were almost as dark as my hair. And I would have to wear heavy makeup to cover it if I wanted, or just deal with the fact that I looked like a Star Trek character when I went out in the sun. Do I still have some? I have some age spots. I have a little bit of melasma, a little bit, but not like I used to have at all. But I'm also, dare I say this, I'm also, no, I'm not going to use that word. I'm also half native, half white. So that changes how my melanin works altogether anyway. But melasma is a sign of insulin resistance. And for many people like myself, the melasma got better when the insulin resistance got under control. Along with that, a lot of people will start to notice skin tags. When I started getting skin tags on my neck, I was freaked out. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what they were. I had these little hard, like white spots of skin all over my neck that were starting to grow. What they were was the beginning of skin tags. I had them under my arms and in my groin, but never watched them grow because they weren't like in a place like this. Now all of those spots are gone. All of the skin tags are gone from my neck, my groin, my underarms, all of that, as well as the dark patches. So it's a thought that you might want to look at addressing insulin resistance, and some of that melasma may get better for you. And look, if it doesn't with the system that I do, there's a money back guarantee. So you just get your money back anyway if it doesn't work for that. But consistency and following the protocol is key, you guys. There's a lot of people who say, oh, you can do whatever you want. And, you get to still eat the way you love. You still get to do a lot of the things you love, but no, there's the reality is something got you here. You got to change something to fix it. So what we're doing, I'm going to explain in a second, but melasma is definitely involved in insulin resistance. Good morning, Skelly. I haven't seen you for a while, but I've been thinking about you. Okay, so I hope that explains the melasma part. Now, with insulin resistance, if we're getting too much food that's converting to sugar energy in our bloodstream too often, then it's obvious that what we need to do is cut back on the food that we eat, but also cut back on the frequency that we eat. That's where the intermittent fasting comes in, and this is where the change in the protocol is happening. Many of you who are already purchasing the system have gotten the email. I don't have a second pack because I used it. So the system that I grew up with and loved is a tea in the morning and a pre-meal drink before I eat anything. Now, for me, because this is the way I've gone, and I understand my gut, and that I need these prebiotics and the fibers in this, I will continue to do 2 of these a day. For the rest of y'all, what they're finding is, and I'll use an old packet, is that because of the multitude of actions that this tea has that I'm going to go over tomorrow, um, that they're finding is that benefit of dopamine, that hunger reduction, that GLP-1 stimulation in the body naturally, um, with the satiety and the fat burning and all of that is really helping people. So when they started noticing that people went from doing 2 meals a day to OMAD, and we started getting feedback that more people were wanting extra tea and they always had leftover balance, they said, well, let's take a look and see if there's any scientific efficacy to changing that. And they did. And so I'm going to learn what all of that is Wednesday. But now we're switching to 2 tea in a day and the fiber before your meal with the most carbohydrates. Now, I talked about on Friday a little something I learned about fiber last week, which I was shocked about. I get so geeked out about stuff, you guys. But fiber, I've always thought about, okay, I want it in my gut about 10 minutes before. I need to eat within about 20 minutes because within about a half hour to 45 minutes, fiber is going to go through my system and then I'm going to need another one. No. What these studies that I was looking at last week show is that, say I had the fiber in the morning, say I'm still having 3 meals a day, which is not what I recommend, but say I was doing that. And I do it every once in a while. Say I have the fiber in the morning before my first meal. Overall, the studies, and there were multiple, showed that the reduction of blood glucose in the first meal with just a normal fiber was 13%. This has been shown to reduce a blood sugar spike by 20%. So very different, almost double the reduction of blood sugar spike with this. But even with the normal fiber, what was happening is that at lunchtime, 4 to 5 hours later, the blood glucose reduction, that blood glucose spike was reduced by about 60% from the fiber that was already present in the system. And then they would do a second fiber before the dinner meal, and there was about a 30% reduction at dinner. So what they're finding is that the fiber sticks around, especially when we have a specific blend like this that's made for your metabolism. It sticks around doing its job a lot longer than at least I used to think. So let me see what this question is. And insulin dependent, insulin isn't bringing my sugars down. Oof. Yeah. So are you a type 1 or type 2 diabetic? Because that's important. But even so, we're going to talk about it. Okay, Gina? So if your insulin is no longer working, yes, you're insulin resistant. Whether you're type 1 or type 2 diabetic, you can become insulin resistant. Bonnie Remick, I'm not making sense. I'm all over. None of this is new. Um, where I don't make sense, Bonnie, let me know and I will try to help you out. But it's how my brain works. So just rein me in and let me know what you're needing to hear. None of this may be new to you. It may be new to a number of people. Every day, about 80% of people who see me are new and don't know this stuff. So to not be going past them, I have a day every once in a while where I just dive into this and we go over it. Now, if you need questions answered that I'm not getting to, just let me know. Okay, so you're type 2. Yeah, you're definitely so type 2 diabetic is insulin resistant. So Gina, what happens is, and I'm pretty sure your doctors have never told you this, right? You have a blood glucose dysregulation problem, which means that too much blood sugar all the time or too often, and that leads to a spike in insulin that creates a constant need for insulin because of the constant spiking of blood sugar. But at this point, your pancreas can produce insulin. They're just perceiving that it's not enough insulin to deal with the glucose load you have. So, what the medical community is doing is looking at it backwards. They're like, well, um, it's like, I was going to say a dam with a leak, but I can't figure that one out. But anyway, what they're doing is they're attacking the thing that's trying to fix the problem and not the real root of the problem. So they're giving you more insulin. But if your body is already resistant to insulin and they give you more of it, what good is that doing? Why are we not looking at how to become sensitive to the insulin? So in a type 2 body, now they're giving you this insulin to deal with those high levels of blood sugars. What we really want to do is mediate the blood sugars so the insulin level can come down. Dr. Bickman, my favorite metabolic scientist, because he's just a wonderful man in the first place. Like he's a church going man. He has a family. He has, he's just a wonderful man. But he has spent his whole life studying metabolism, wrote this book, Why We Get Sick. What Dr. Bickman tells people is this. If your doctor is giving you, and he tells doctors this, he's traveled around the world telling doctors this, when you give a type 2 diabetic insulin, you're making them sicker quicker, you're making them fatter quicker, and you're killing them quicker because you're taking something that's already out of order and now you're adding to that. So stop the excess insulin, according to Dr. Bickman. I can't tell you what to do, so I'm not selling you. Stop the insulin. You've got to work with your doctor. Let's be clear about that. For me, it would be stop the excess insulin. That makes sense. If my body's already resistant to it, why am I putting more in? Why am I not just seeing what the problem is? Well, the problem is that our food is imperfect. We know this. We all know this. But one of the big things that's been stripped out of our food is fiber, and that fiber slows down the food from being um, digested too quickly so that it's spiking blood sugars. So you have fiber first, you eat those little bit of sugars, they get encapsulated in the fiber, and now it's slowing down how quickly it's hitting your bloodstream, lowering a blood sugar spike, lowering the need for insulin, and now you start to become more insulin sensitive. But it also requires a little bit of fasting to stop the overproduction of insulin. So if your doctor's just giving you insulin and telling you to eat small meals, he's making you sicker. Okay, so if you want to talk more about it, you can message me and let's talk. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist. I cannot diagnose. I can tell you what I've done. I can tell you what I know and let you make your best decision. Okay, so really, you guys, the biggest thing for me is that it does come down to intermittent fasting and fiber. Fiber is always going to be key for me because of what it does for your gut and what it does for insulin resistance. When we don't have enough fiber, our intestinal system is struggling with a microbiome that's highly negative, causing yeast infections and other infections, itchy skin, and worse breakouts of psoriasis, and all of those things. So, get the insulin under control. Now, a lot of your health issues can get under control too. And that's going to make the whole big difference for you in the world. Now, if you do the system that I'm doing and it doesn't change things for you, you get your money back. So, here's my thing, and this is just the way my mind works, right? And it's not, it's, I'm just different from other people, maybe not different from some people, but for me, it worth me being consistent and spending the $5 a day for 90 days to see if all of this can get better? For me, it is. For me, it would be worth not doing, and look, I was on 13 different medications. That's about $130 of copays. That darn near paid for my system anyway, but now I'm not on any medications, and all I do is this tea in the morning and a pre-meal drink before I eat anything. My insulin resistance is reversed. My A1C is 5.3. My blood sugars are down. My blood pressure is down, and that's all it is. So tacky layered BS to what part? I'd love to address it. So just understand that insulin resistance. When I talked in the beginning, we talked about the brain a little bit because of the three organs that are the most metabolically sensitive. Remember, it's going to be your kidneys and then your heart and then your brain. So when we start to look at all of this dysfunction up here, we can link most of those things to dysfunction in one of those three areas that becomes the most metabolically inflexible the quickest. Now, the one that's not in there that I think is worth mentioning is your liver. Um, Besides kidneys, heart, and brain, I think your liver is important to look at. There are so many people who are having gallbladder problems, gallstones, a number of issues like that. And the liver becoming fatty causes a whole array of other issues, including fat metabolism and glucose regulation. So, when we understand that insulin resistance is greatly impacting each one of those organs, we can start to see how it's all linked in. Okay. Um, all right. So Cheryl, that's, I've heard that to be true for a number of people. So Cheryl says, "Good morning. I was told the longer I'm on insulin, at some point my pancreas will stop producing insulin." The body's odd that way with a number of hormones. So your body gets trained to do to deal with whatever we're doing with it, right? So if you're injecting insulin in a body that can produce insulin, the body starts to say, well, I don't have to produce it anymore because they're injecting it. So then it kind of forgets or stops producing it. We've seen this with like men who take testosterone, especially for competition, and they take high loads of testosterone. Over amount of time, they start not producing their own testosterone, and now they're testosterone dependent because they're taking high levels of it. And I believe in my train of thought that this is true with the pancreas and insulin as well. If you're not letting your pancreas produce insulin in the right amounts and addressing why it's having to produce so much, and instead just injecting more in the body, you're telling your body that it doesn't need the pancreas to do that job anymore. Does that make sense, Cheryl? So I would absolutely agree with that statement. That's what I would say. Um, okay. So I want to, I'm going to just show you guys a few pictures because I think it's important to see what's going on with people and the system and insulin resistance. Now, these are some people that have done the system, and I didn't remove this, so it's gonna be funky. Hold on a second. I'm I'm There we are. Okay, so this was me, you guys. This was me when I started. I was in pain. I could hardly walk. I had a walker cane. I had a huge belly. I had a double chin. I had all the stuff. And I was trying to smile, but I was angry and in pain because my body was hurting all the time. Lost 50 pounds, reversed my diabetes, reversed my blood pressure with just the system. Okay. So, but it's not just me. This young lady here, beautiful soul, Alexis, she's actually down to a size 6 now. She has a family history of diabetes. She started the system because she didn't want to exit this world early and leave her children without a mama. And she'd been seeing that happen throughout her family. So she started and still does the system today, and her health is amazing. Her husband also does it, and a number of her family members are also utilizing the system now, too. This is a beautiful friend of mine. She's asked me not to use her real name. But this was her before. And all she did was the system. She's lost that insulin resistant belly. Um, she still has a few health issues because she's a smoker, and she knows that the reduction of oxygen and all the things that go along with smoking are causing her some problems. But she's lost over 40 pounds. She's gotten rid of her diverticulitis, her kidney stones, her depression, her anxiety, and her joint pain. Um, and she's happier than she's been in years. She never thought she'd be able to lose all of that again. Then Christy, you guys, the reason Christy's in here is because I want to show you that even a person who is healthy can still be insulin resistant. So insulin resistant diabetes, still competitive, off season, bloated. You can see it in her face. You can see it in her belly. Same time in off season, same suit. On the system, the bloating is gone, and her diabetes is gone also, and a number of the other things, anxiety, depression, inflammation that she was suffering with, are all gone. So you don't have to be fat or overweight for this to be true for you. And then Jason, who's now lost, I believe, 190 pounds, his doctors had wanted him to do the weight loss surgeries. They wanted him to do the drugs. And he was like, nope, not doing any of that. Thankfully, he saw me. We had a conversation, got him on the system, and now his life is completely changed. And he didn't have to do any of those crazy things. 190 pounds down in a year and a half. And that's healthy. He's maintained muscle, he's maintained his health during that. So Cindy has lost over 160 pounds now and reversed her prediabetes and got her hypertension, hyperlipidemia under control. Cindy's husband has also reversed his type 2 diabetes. Karen has reversed her type 2 diabetes and has her husband on it and has helped him as well. Stephanie, my girl Stephanie, who's traveling home today, we never thought she needed it. When you looked at Stephanie in her before picture, nobody would think, oh, she's insulin resistant. But she lost over 40 pounds. She got her 4-pack abs back without doing sit-ups. Her ADHD is trust me, much better controlled than it was before. And then there's Dia, who has lost over 60 pounds, cancer survivor. Her husband and all of her children utilize the system because she has a type 1 diabetic in her household. This young man is a type 1 diabetic, so he is insulin dependent. But what's happened is his fast-acting insulin load is down, his long-acting insulin load is down, and he's lost over 35 pounds and is doing tons better than he was before. So that's a number of other people besides myself. So when people come on to me and they say BS or whatever, I'm like, you know why I can smile through all that? Because because I have the proof in the pudding. All of these people All they did was this system and they got better. And there's more than that. And I'm on the phone every day with people, helping them either get started on the system or utilize the system, or hearing their stories of great success. People with ankylosing spondylitis who said that it's in remission or gone, people, they can't find it. A number of other issues that are all linked to the things that I talk about, are all different for them. So, all right. Okay, guys, I am almost done for today. Tomorrow, I do want to come on and talk about the tea. We're going to talk a little bit this morning. So you should have gotten an email. Those of you who haven't started yet, the system is now looking like a tea in the morning, a tea in the afternoon, and a pre-meal drink before your biggest meal with carbohydrates. And that's how that's going to go. You can still get extra fiber if you want the extra in the morning. Denise, sure, just send me a message and I will talk with you. The system is this. These two products. So a tea like I'm drinking this morning and a pre-meal drink. So it's used at 3 points during the day. The tea is giving you energy, mental clarity. It's helping you with satiety. It's helping with dopamine production. It's helping with a number of things. There's 13 science-backed um, or benefits of this tea we're going to go over tomorrow. That's the system. A tea in the morning, a pre-meal drink before you eat, and it's that simple. What it's doing is helping replace nutrients that have been stripped out so our body can function more normally, and that's all it really takes. It doesn't take all kinds of crazy medications and pills and injections and all of that. We just need to understand what caused the root of it, which is food that's defunct and food that we're eating too often. And now we can start to have health. And you guys, since I've been doing this lifestyle and I started focusing on protein and fats in my meals, I am far less hungry. I don't even, I'm not even as hungry for the sugars. Like I used to be a really big sugar addict. And, every once in a while I fall off the wagon a little bit and I start doing that too. But if I focus on protein and fat and start my meal with fiber, I am full. I don't have cravings. My body does better. Um, and so yesterday, let's be honest. Yesterday I had a lazy day. I had way more sugary treats than I would like. And this morning I woke up to blood work that was showing a lot of inflammation. And that's not cool. So it was a good wake up call that, yeah, that's the stuff that's damaging. Stay away from it. But yeah, if you guys want to talk to me, just use my link tree isn't working. Let's check that because I believe that it is. So it could be your cache or whatever, but I'm going to show you right now. So if we go to okay, so here's my link tree, right? Right below, or here's my profile. Right below is this link tree. You click on that, and there it comes up perfectly. Connect with me, order the system, or order the ebook. It's all right there. And if it's not working for you, just message me here on TikTok and I will get it to you privately. Okay. But it is working because I just clicked on it. I can do it again. We'll just click on it here and it's going to take me right to my link tree. Sometimes it's just the cache or pop-up blockers or whatever you have enabled on your phone that are causing that issue. Make sense? Okay. Yeah, I just showed you it is working. So, all right. And then Denise just messaged me. I'll try to put the number in here and see if it shows up. Okay. That's my number if you want to text me and have a chat. Let's do that and see if this can help you too. But you guys, it's the best thing that I've done for my life. And I can't imagine where I would be today without it. Seriously, a walker, cane, it would hurt to walk. I couldn't go up and down stairs. My life looked completely different than it does now. And I hope to help you guys get there too. So it's not, you don't have to be in pain all the time. You don't have to be struggling all the time. It's much easier than you think. And tomorrow we're going to talk about this amazing tea. I'm going to talk about the benefits of it and GLP-1, why it's doing all of that. And we'll hope to expand on this. And then if you guys have things you want me to talk about, any specific diseases, disorders, anything that you have that's concerning you, let me know, and we can certainly have a talk about those things too. But for this morning, I'm going to hop off. 8:30 a.m. 8:30 a.m. every morning, Monday through Friday. Look, I haven't even finished my hot one, and I'm drinking my cold one. I actually do drink 2 of those a day, and I do drink 2 of the fiber a day. I just feel much better when I do. So 8:30 in the morning, we'll see you guys then. You plan to do the system, you need info to send your doctor on how to get insurance to cover. So Cheryl, and here's the thing, you guys, I've talked about how insurance will cover it. So here's all you have to do is this. And I can't guarantee that your insurance will cover it, but they will not cover it up front. This is one of those things where you pay for it, you get the prescription from your doctor, and because this is in the prescriber's digital reference, what people have done is sent the receipt and the prescription to their insurance, and the insurance reimburses them for it. Some people who have an HSA just use their HSA to cover it, and it covers because it's in the PDR. So I can't guarantee that your insurance will cover it. It's definitely not on a formulary for any insurance because we're not big pharma, but it can be looked up in the PDR. So a prescription, um, your purchase, those things go to your insurance, and they will decide whether they're going to be that insurance company that's going to help you out with it. A number of people have had their insurance companies do it, but that's what it is. Prescription, purchase, return those 2 receipts, those 2 things to your insurance. And then you guys, the other thing is, yeah, there is a referral system with this. So you can get, if for every person that you refer to help out with this, you get a $10 credit. So it starts to reduce the cost of your system. For me, I get a little bit more than that because I'm a representative. If you want to help people with their health and do what I do, message me about that too, and we can share that story with you as well, because it's crazy. You guys, my whole life is not different just because I can walk up and down stairs. My whole life is different because of the lifestyle I'm able to have now and be there for my family. Yesterday was a rough day. My son is deployed, and I was having conversation with him, and it's for our guys our guys and gals in the military, it's really hard being in such not home like situations, and they're serving the country and they're separated from their families, and it's a huge mental toll on all of them. So just trying to be a support to the family, that's important. Would I have the time and the ability to support my family the way I want to, not just financially, but emotionally, if I wasn't doing this? Probably not. So it's been a godsend for me in many ways, and it can be for you too. I'm going to hop off. We'll see you in the morning. Use the links, text me if you want more information, and let's get this thing going. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.